It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interview. Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Sproles, ends up, yes! Caught! Touchdown! They did it!
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome on in. It's the Full Court Press. I'm Eric Frandsen. He's Jason Walker. And we're on the air on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. We're streaming online on 1069thefan.com and streaming on the 1069 The Fan mobile app. Take us with you wherever you are. And if you ever missed any part of the show, you can always go find our podcasts on our website, on our app, or wherever you subscribe to podcasts. And like we did yesterday, the podcast will be more than what you heard over the air. We're going to be doing a bonus section of the show.
More like a makeup section.
It's kind of.
Because we got another short show today. We're going to be out on the live broadcast at about 4:30. Utah Mammoth taking over as they take on the Maple Leaves.
I think that's right.
They're on an Eastern/international road trip here.
Yes.
But we'll have roughly an hour's worth of content, including the live portion, and then we'll go over some stuff just as kind of a podcast only. So if you're listening to this on a podcast, don't worry, you'll get the whole experience. If you're listening on air, you'll have to catch some of it later on the podcast feed.
Yeah, like we did yesterday. We had some bonus stuff yesterday. We'll throw more bonus stuff on there today. So if you missed any part of it, you can go back and listen on our website or on our app. So let's get to it. Short time together today. And let's start to shift into football focus here. Utah State had a bye week this last week. Now they have shifted their focus, preparing for the Nevada Wolfpack. And this is a Nevada team that does not have a good record. But, Jason, it could be easy to overlook this team and come unprepared for what you might see on Saturday. This is a team that's put up some pretty good battles over the course of their season so far. They're ranked pretty low in a lot of statistical categories. I was doing the homework on this earlier, and I don't know how many total statistical categories there are and what the Mountain West puts out. But this team is ranked in the bottom third of like 38 different statistical categories, dead last in quite a few of those, 24 of those. Now, by comparison, Utah State has struggled in some categories as well. Aggies are bottom three, in 18 statistical categories, dead last in 5. So this is a battle of two teams that are kind of struggling in some key areas. Certainly, Nevada struggling more than the Aggies, but this is Utah State really needs this win more so than just getting bowl eligible. This is a game that if Utah State plays it right, can be a good confidence boost to help get them back into good football for the last stretch of the season.
Yeah, there's some pretty big stakes here because if Utah State loses this game, like it's one of those where you don't gain a ton if you win, but there is a lot to lose here. And I forgot to look at what the rest of Nevada's schedule looks like, but I don't know if they're going to necessarily have a quote-unquote easier game the rest of the way.
They host San Jose, they travel to Wyoming, and then they host UNLV.
Yeah, so like this, that maybe the San Jose, like this maybe the San Jose game are kind of going to be their two games to get, one, an FBS win. They have not beaten an FBS opponent, and quite frankly, based on that Sacramento State game they won, they should be over.
Right. Yes.
They really should have lost that game, but they didn't. They pulled it out. I guess they made the plays they needed to. But for Utah State to lose this one, Bronco Mendenhall is not going to get fired for anything he does this season, but it would make his seat considerably warm going into the offseason. He'd have a very warm December.
Yes.
Based on the seat he's sitting on.
Yes.
Because he would end up getting very little slack by the end of next season. Like, that's the kind of stakes we're talking about with this kind of loss. This is the kind of loss. Again, it's not going to get you fired this year because you don't ever want to fire a coach after one season unless things are spectacularly bad. And for all the complaints we can have, Utah State does not even come close to that level of spectacularly bad.
No.
They're 500, they're 4, so we're not going to entertain that, but like, it's the kind of thing that sets you up for failure in the future is losing these kind of games.
Yeah, but looking at the scouting Nevada, as you said, they only have the one win against Sacramento State, 20-17.
Did you say Sacramento State?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I wanted to make sure.
But they've had a number of close games. Like they barely lost to Fresno State, 20-17. They barely lost to the Lobos, 24-22. Those are teams that are having some good seasons. Both of those teams are bowl eligible right now. Both of those teams are 6-3. Boise State beat them 24-3, but that was a very uncomfortable 24 points for Boise State. Even though Boise State beat them by 3 touchdowns, folks in Boise are freaking out about how close that game was. And so this is a team that has the potential to keep it close and be tough. They just don't know how to win. They turn the ball over a lot. They provide opportunities for their opponents. They did make a quarterback change. He's young, but they've had a week off, just like Utah State has had, to get him ready for this matchup in Logan. And Jeff Choate spent time here on Utah State's staff. He would love nothing more than to get his first FBS win this season on his old stomping grounds.
Yeah, and one thing about Nevada, like if this game ends up being close, I wouldn't really freak out about that. I know Boise State may be freaking out about it a little bit, but this is a Nevada team who has this weird tendency to be close, but just about always lose. In the last 2 years, they have 17 total losses. And of those 17 losses, 10 of those were within one possession. That includes 29-24 against SMU, a playoff team last year. That's when they lost to them, was last year. SMU goes to the playoff. 28-21 loss to Boise State, also a playoff team, top 4 seed in the college football playoff. So like that, though, that's the caliber of team they've managed to keep it close with, not win, mind you. Again, 17 losses, 10 of those by 10 of those were single possession games. They've been in 12 single possession games over the last 2 years. They've lost 10 of them. One of the wins was against an FCS team. The other was against Troy last year, who went 4-8 in the Sun Belt. So, like, this is a team that has managed to stay close, but just about never win. And so, if you're Utah State and if you're Utah State fans, if this ends up being a 27-21, 24-17, 24-20, like, don't freak out about that because that's kind of just par for the course with Nevada.
Yeah, that's true, because I was thinking about this earlier. Like, are we comfortable with a margin of victory, or do we start to get frustrated? Because we've seen this. Like, you won the game, but did you really win the game? Like, did you manage the expectations people had going into this game?
I mean, at this point, does Utah State have any room to be making those complaints?
No,
you're talking about maybe
true.
Barely making a bowl game. You get a win by whatever means necessary. If you get a win because the ball hit the ref in the face and bounced into the hands of your player and he runs it into the end zone, you take it.
Right.
Because you might not get wins otherwise.
Well, yeah, like the example is what's happened, or what happened a few weeks ago up in Boise. Like, they won by 3 touchdowns, but everybody's up there freaking out. Like, the team was unprepared. They didn't execute very well. And I know that's Boise.
That's just Boise
being
over
Boise.
Yeah,
but for Aggie fans, like, if the Aggies win by 7, people shouldn't be freaking out like, oh my gosh, we just barely got past a team with only 1 win and it wasn't against an FBS opponent. Nevada has shown time and time again, as you just illustrated, that they can be competitive in a lot of games. They just struggle to figure out how to actually win games, but they don't back down. Like, they will play you close. And I think they deserve some credit for that. Earlier, Utah State looked like they were favored by like 11 and a half. Today, the line is 9.5. It's moving in Nevada's favor. But Utah State should win this game, Jason. But don't be surprised if this game is uncomfortably close.
Yeah, I have every expectation that Utah State should win this game. But as we've talked about, it can be close. And part of it is that Nevada's shown to have at least decent defense. You look at where they're at in terms of points against per game. It's 27.5. They're 91st, which, again, that's not great, but it's decent at times. They've held 5 opponents to 24 or fewer points. One of the teams that went over that was Penn State. Of course, I know Penn State's not in the same lofty air it was when they were number 2 in the country when Nevada played them, but
still P5 team.
But Western Kentucky went for 31 points. San Diego State, who's now probably the favorite to win the conference, they put up 44 on Nevada. But other teams like New Mexico, Boise, Fresno, Middle Tennessee's not the greatest powerhouse. And then you have Sacramento State held all of those teams to 24 or fewer points. So, it's not a defense that's shutting people down, and some of these teams they faced have weak-ish offenses. But Utah State may struggle, or if they have a spectacular game, they could put up 30 points. There's a spectrum that we could see, and if Utah State ends up on the low end of the spectrum of points, don't freak out too much, because this is a Nevada defense that is capable of some of those things. And of course, we've also seen Utah State struggle in some respects, where they've slowed down a little bit in the last few weeks. Mostly last week was a big slowdown, but even the last 3 weeks, they've slowed down a little bit after a great start offensively. But this would be a great time to get back to that. After scoring 14 points in a loss on the road, go out there and score 35 against Nevada. That would be a really great pick-me-up going into these last few games.
Yeah, but with this Nevada team, talking about their defense, they've got a stud at on the defensive line, and he is a massive disruptor. There aren't very many things you could look at in Nevada and say, oh, that's where they're pretty good, because there's a lot of mistakes and there's some things that they're just not very efficient at. But they do have a very good defensive lineman, Dylan LaBarbera.
Yeah, we've been going back and forth on how to pronounce this guy's name, LaBarbera. Which just makes me start thinking of the Beach Boys song. So I'm not going to sing it, but
I'm thinking La Bamba.
Well, that's true. That probably
we're thinking of music when we talk about him.
That's true.
But this is a defensive lineman. He's got 6.5 sacks. He leads the team in tackles. And when you've got a defensive lineman who leads the team in tackles, that's scary. And it's not because the other guys are not good. It's because he's making plays. This guy makes plays. Very disruptive, and Coach Bronco Mendenhall talked about him and how he is a disruptor for their defense.
Really good football player, playing in a good football in a good system, and he's well coached, and just he's being utilized effectively within the schemes, but he's also making the most of the plays that he can make. So yeah, really impressive.
Yeah, he's a good player. 69 total tackles, 6.5 sacks. 44 yards that he's taken away from opposing offenses.
Yeah, and this is the exact kind of guy that can blow things up for Utah State. Mind you, they got him, and they've also got Jonathan Maldonado, who's got 7 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks. So it's they've got multiple guys in that front seven that are capable of creating negative plays, and if there's something that Utah State's been weak at on offense, it's allowing those negative plays, those tackles for loss, particularly sacks, and even pressures on the quarterback that maybe don't turn out to be sacks or tackles for loss, but they lead to pressures and therefore incomplete passes, which can put you in 2nd and long, 3rd and long situations, and that has a knock-on effect down the line, leading to either more negative plays or sometimes best case just a punt. So Utah State really has to be able to hold these guys off or find a way to just get around them. Sometimes with a defense, you just find ways to get around or go away from their top players, and you can create a game plan around that. You can create a blocking scheme around that. You can create some timely pass plays and different things like that, different route combinations that can help you get around that if you can't just, play better. If the best option,
the Jason Walker mantra, play better.
The best option is to just always play better. But in the event that you can't quite pull that off, there are different things you can go to scheme-wise. And we've seen Kevin McGivern be pretty creative, and he's due for another creative burst, I think. Things have kind of slowed down. But, we saw at the beginning of the season, he found a way to make things work. And eventually, and especially you got a bye week, there's some time to cook some new things up. And I think we'll see some good things from the offense overall.
Let's hit the Young Power Sports of Logan text line. If you want to weigh in, we always love to hear from you there. 435-339-0321. 5338 texting in. Any Mountain West Conference basketball team that loses a regular season game to a Division II team should automatically be disqualified from postseason play.
I'm not a fan of a season opener disqualifying you from something that happens in March, but it may be a de facto disqualification because, Boise State will be on the bubble. Most Mountain West teams that are at large are on the bubble. Sometimes they're not, but like San Diego State has usually not been on the bubble. I know last year they were on the bubble. I think they were one of the last 4 teams in, but a lot of times if you're not the conference champion, you're on the. Mind you, we've had plenty Mountain West teams get in regardless, but if Boise State is on the bubble, that loss may very well just be, again, de facto disqualification, just in that, at least to fans.
It definitely looks bad.
I don't know if we have any precedent on how the committee treats that, but it's bad. And really, your best case scenario or best silver lining is that it's so early in the season that you'd hope that the committee will be like, well, it was really early in the season. But when you're down to splitting hairs, the tiniest, smallest hairs off of a balding man, that's something that may very well be the disqualification. Well, at least this team didn't lose to a D2 team, so we're going to put them in.
Bad losses are definitely part of the discussion. They look at good wins versus bad losses.
And bad losses seem to be
stick
more
out like a sore thumb all season long.
And bad losses seem to have much more of a negative impact than big wins have a positive effect.
Yeah, very true.
That's mostly just human nature.
9315 texting in. What? Short again? Are you making Ajay jokes?
No, we're not making Ajay jokes.
And then 9315 also. Utah State better not lose this one, or the Mountain West school that are not headed to the Pac will be not great on social media.
Yeah,
there's definitely a big divide. Those that are headed to the Pac-12, those who are sticking around to the Mountain West, they love to poke at the other schools when they slip up.
Yeah.
So a lot of Mountain West fan bases pointing at the Boise State's stumble in basketball. They would love to point at Utah State's stumble in football if they weren't able to win this weekend.
Yeah, we're gearing up for a pretty dang good conference rivalry, between conferences. Forget Big Ten and SEC going at each other and all that. It's Pac-12 and Mountain West, baby.
Yes, nice and saucy. But let's keep talking about Nevada. This is a team that, as we said, struggles in a lot of areas, not particularly efficient. And part of the problem is they turn the ball over quite a bit. Between those who have played under center for Nevada, they have thrown collectively 15 interceptions so far this year.
I've got 13. Am I missing a couple?
I don't know. According to the ESPN team statistics, Carter Jones has thrown 6, Chubba Purdy has thrown 8, and then AJ Bianco threw 1.
This one says Purdy only has 6. I'm looking at Sports Reference.
But either way,
it's a lot of interceptions.
It's a lot of passes to the wrong team. And if the concern for me is that what if Nevada actually plays efficient and doesn't throw the ball away? That how much more challenging would they be? They don't have a particularly standout wide receiver. The tight end has the most receptions, and most yards, but it's not like a ton. But Bronco talked a little bit about that. About this is a team that's been pretty solid, just as long as they don't turn the ball over, and they have a lot of interceptions and turnovers on the season.
Yeah, I think the offense has been solid already with the turnovers being the determining factor. There's been a couple different quarterbacks. Both are capable. I think probably the motive for the change, or whichever one is leading the offense at a higher level, has been basically who's caring for the ball at the highest level. But they are running the ball. They're using the clock effectively. And so I think that's the direction they are going and will continue to go.
Yeah, so if you're looking at a reference of like, what can this Nevada team do when they don't throw a bunch of interceptions? Well, there's only one game in which they've not thrown an interception, and that's against New Mexico. They went 23 of 29. I believe it was Carter Jones, the freshman, who's in there for the whole game. Threw still only 202 yards, so like still not throwing for a ton of yards overall. They're just not a team that gets a lot of yards through the air. Part of it is they don't throw the ball a ton. I think they're averaging like 25-ish pass attempts per game. But, they have their best completion percentage on the season. They finally got some things going, 7 yards per attempt. It's not really indicative of maybe their whole offense overall, because in that same Nevada game, New Mexico game, they were at New Mexico. They only ran for 55 rushing yards. They averaged 2 yards per attempt. So I don't know if that's indicative of the entire offense, but like still, in the one game where they didn't throw any interceptions, and it was also the only game in which they did not have a turnover, Nevada scored 22 points. It is their highest scoring total of the season, 22 points. So that's what happens when they don't turn the ball over. They can at least get something going. But the interesting thing about Nevada and the run game, because there's some things that you kind of have to balance some nuance. Because in a 3-game stretch from Sacramento State, Middle Tennessee State, and Western Kentucky, they ran for north of 200 yards in each of those games. They averaged, I think, collectively, I'm trying to get my notes here. Yeah, those 3 games, they averaged 226 rushing yards per game, 5.6 yards per attempt. However, since then, in 4 weeks, their most rushing yards in a single game is 129. That was against Fresno State. They've been under 60 in 2 of those games. And so they've been averaging 2.9 yards per attempt over their last 4 games. But this is also where nuance comes in. Those are also 4 of the toughest defenses they'll face all year. Fresno, San Diego, New Mexico's been pretty solid. I mean, Utah State found that out last week. And Boise State's pretty solid on defense. So while Nevada's had a rough time running the ball lately, Utah State's going to kind of be one of the easiest defenses they've faced since September. So I think we're going to see a bump up for them in their efficiency metrics, and that's going to make turnovers really key for Utah State, because they're not going to be able to just shut down Nevada in the run game or in the pass game the same way that San Diego State did or that Boise State did. But I think they have the ability to create turnovers in the same way that some of these teams did. Maybe not 5 turnovers like Boise did, but 2 like San Diego State, or 3 or 4. Fresno State got 4. Like, I think Utah State can get 2 or 3 turnovers in this one, and that could be something that completely turns the game in favor of the Aggies.
Well, besides the 15 interceptions, they've also lost, I think it was 6 fumbles.
Yeah, 6 fumbles.
So they've really struggled to hold on to the ball. Bo Miley talked a little bit about the Utah State defense. This is a defense that's trying to improve. It's trying to grow. It's trying to be better. That at times has been a little bit exposed, but at times they've had stretches where they look very stout and very solid. And this has been a point of emphasis during their bye week in their preparation for Nevada.
I think we're honestly just trying to grow. I think we have a lot of ups and downs, and there's just things that we're just trying to fix, and a lot of guys are stepping up into roles and things like that. So I think we're really honestly just trying to capitalize on the opportunities we're given, and just like there's a lot of things that we honestly need to fix, and we're getting to every single day. And I think some of the guys, like some of the leaders, we're just all just trying to step up into our roles and just capitalize on what we're given and the opportunities we have.
And that's kind of a similar sentiment that I got last night when I spoke with Gabe Beniguez and Josh Sturzer. You'll hear more of those comments tomorrow. We didn't have time to play them today, but that the leadership for this team, the player leadership, has really been trying to step up and be more vocal and just be better at what they do. They're not trying to change who they are or change their concepts. They're just trying to be more efficient and more on the ball with what they've already been taught and what they already have been learned.
Yeah. So I know that I've gone on about maybe making adjustments to the scheme and whatnot, but one way or the other, these guys got to make improvements. If it's improvements to the execution, fine. If there's tweaks that need to be made, then those are going to be made. We'll leave that decision up to the coaching staff. They know more than I do, but something's got to improve, and this would certainly be a good week to show that, especially against an offense that struggled. That's one that maybe you can fine-tune some things, much like McNeese was, where they're able to at least improve on some things in that one.
That's going to do it for us on the live portion of our show. Utah Mammoth coming up next here on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM The Fan. But for those who want to hear more, we'll have more on the pod. Bonus audio coming up on our website.
Winter is coming. Let your local Napa store get you ready with deals on wiper blades from Rain-X, Trico, and Bosch. The long-lasting silicone blades are in stock now. How's Diesel Treatment Case Lot sell? Get the big half-gallon bottle for only $11.99 when you buy a case. Mobile One, 5-quart jugs, $34.99. 50-pound bags of Blue Heat Ice Melt, $10. Oils from Rotella, Valvoline, Napa Premium, all on sale. Your locally owned Preston to Providence, Napa Auto Parts.
Napa know-how. Napa know-how.
Spend less time at the post office. With Formax and Mint mailing systems from Les Olson IT, you can quickly, accurately, and easily process your outgoing mail and even save on postage. Fold your documents, stuff and seal your envelopes, print addresses, weigh and measure to apply proper postage, all with the click of a button. With multiple model options available, you're sure to find a Formax solution and Mint mailing device that perfectly fits your business needs.
Les Olson IT.
Old McDarrell has a farm, an appliance farm.
With down-home country prices and big city selection.
E-I-E-I-O. When you're looking for a friendly spot to drive a little and save a lot, hey, Old McDarrell has a farm, an appliance farm. Darrell's Appliance. Low overhead, but lots of country charm. See Darrell's Appliance in beautiful downtown Benson.
Winter's here and that old car sitting in your driveway isn't getting any warmer. Turn that frozen junker into cold hard cash with DD Auto and Salvage in Logan. It's never too cold, too wet, or too late to clean up and cash out. DD Auto and Salvage makes it quick and easy. They'll even pick it up for you. Get the most money possible for your junk vehicle or scrap metal and earn a little extra holiday cash while you're at it. Call 787-1204. That's 787-1204. And let DD Auto and Salvage pay you today. DD Auto and Salvage. Cold cars turned into hot cash.
This is Jordan with Primrose Home Care and Hospice. When it comes to home care, it's important for you to know you do have a choice. If you or a loved one is in need of home care services, remember Primrose Home Care and Hospice believes in treating the patient, not the problem. We work directly with you and your doctor to create a health plan that's catered to your needs. Our team is devoted to providing options in the freedom and safety of your own home. Call for a free home safety evaluation, 787-1369, and visit primrosecare.com. Primrose Home Care and Hospice. We're your home team.
Thank you for letting Cache Valley Ear, Nose, and Throat, the Allergy Clinic, and the Hearing Aid Center care for your family this year. Be sure to call us for an appointment before the end of the year to make the most of your cafeteria or flex funds. Located in Providence and North Logan, Cache Valley ENT also has offices in Box Elder, Rich, Bear Lake, and Franklin counties. The entire team at Cache Valley Ear, Nose, and Throat wish you and your family a healthy holiday season. Go to CacheValleyENT.com for details. Most insurance plans, including Select Health, are accepted.
Young Power Sports of Logan, they sponsor our text line here on the Full Court Press. But reminder, they know that winter's coming fast, and they want to make sure that you're ready for it. They're ready for it. So right now, you can get blowout pricing on all 2025 Ski-Doo and Polaris snowmobiles, up to $6,000 off. And you can also get free pickup and drop-off service for free, plus free preseason checks on all snowmobiles just off South Main in Logan. Young Power Sports in Logan, where your winter adventure begins. And the podcast continues here on the Full Court Press. The first part, a lot of football talk, but here in the bonus pod, if you will. Some other things to discuss as we talk about a couple of things that are going on. Big news today for the Utah Jazz. Walker Kessler looks like he is having shoulder surgery, a torn labrum in his shoulder, and he is going to be out for the season. It seems like a long time to declare a player is going to be out for shoulder surgery, but it's
a torn labrum. Like it's
give him plenty of time for recovery, and there's no need like the Jazz are in the title hunt or something where they need to rush him back.
Yeah, well, it's like a torn ligament or tendon. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I don't know exactly what the labrum is classified as, but when you have torn muscles, that's usually I don't know if there's a single torn muscle that isn't a season-ending injury, because you have guys that'll tear their pectoral muscles. That's another chest, shoulder area. Basically anything. If you tear the muscle, you're done. You got to have surgery. You got to go through a long rehab, get that back into shape. So it sucks for Kessler, especially in a contract year. Like, this is someone who obviously was not happy that he didn't get the contract extension he wanted, and so it's a situation of, all right, go earn it on the court. Well, now he can't earn it on the court this year.
Somewhat damaged goods now.
Yeah, so it's good for the Jazz front office, and in that sense, kind of good for the fans, because might cost you less, but it sucks just looking at another human being being like seeing that kind of opportunity ripped from his grasp, because you like to say bet on yourself, all that kind of stuff. Suddenly, you can't bet on yourself anymore.
This is why you want negotiated, strong contracts in case of situations like this.
Yeah, especially for guys who, in most sports, you get underpaid for the first 5, 6, 7 years of your career. Not quite as long if they've managed to negotiate that down to like 3 or 4 years. But then bad swing of luck, and it's like, all right, you might be going into your prime years where you're signing these big contracts, and you don't get that. You don't get to make up for the fact that you were underpaid for a while. So it sucks for Walker Kessler as the person I know. I've had the chance to meet him. Fantastic guy. And we're hoping for the best, and hopefully that's in a Jazz uniform. I know JD likes to needle me a little bit talking about future Laker Walker Kessler. But I really hope that he does well for the Jazz in the future and that this recovery goes well. But I guess the question now as we move forward is, I don't know if there was, and we kind of entertained this maybe a little bit, or maybe I was thinking about talking about it and we never got to it on the show, but like if the Jazz were just going to, I don't know, just what the heck, let's go for it and see where we end up. And if they end up close to the playoffs, they end up close to the playoffs. Or now with Kessler being out, that's probably your second best player on the team.
Yeah.
Depending
consistently.
Depending on how you feel about the way Keyonte George has really improved, especially offensively and a little bit in efficiency. But I would say pretty clearly second best player. How do you go about the rest of the season? Do you just tank again? And maybe do it almost as deliberately as last year and trust that the lottery gods and or Adam Silver are nice to you?
Well, yeah, it's he's one player gone. He certainly means a lot to the team, but the question for me is, do they just does this just change the way they do rotations now with the guys they already have on roster? Kyle Filipowski, Yusuf Nurkic. Do they go find somebody else? They call somebody up from the G League. They go find somebody who's playing and bring them in, or find somebody who's on the beach and bring them in, some other big guy to help with rotations. And there might be an element of that, but I don't know that the Jazz say, oh, Walker's out, so we're going to throw in the towel. But they were already leaning in on playing some of these younger guys a little bit more. But we did see Kevin Love start to play some minutes in the game against Boston, and we haven't really seen much of him at all yet to this point. So I think the Jazz will work with what they have. They'll probably bring somebody up from the G League, a big guy who's kicking around, but he's not going to be a big difference maker. But the Utah will still lean in on their youth movement to give them opportunities. But this is, I don't know that this really changes their fortunes dramatically, not having Walker Kessler available. Certainly, if you don't have a guy who's a good player who's suddenly not available on your roster anymore, yeah, it's going to have an effect. but I don't know that it's going to be, dramatically change Utah's fortunes based on what they were probably going to end up with anyway.
Yeah, perhaps not, but it does make them a notably worse team. And as far as bringing in somebody for depth, I don't know if they need to. They got Oscar Chibwe. He's listed as a center, although he's 6'9". But you've got Nurkic, Filipowski, Kevin Love, Taylor Hendricks. You've got enough guys that are some of those guys centers. I mean, Nurkic and Filipowski are, but Kevin Love and Taylor Hendricks aren't really true centers. But what the heck? Go out there and play them next to Lauri Markkanen and have them as your big. So I don't know if they need to bring in a center, but they might very well. I don't know if they're not really going to get an extra roster spot, but they can use one of those 2-way slots where they have a guy again listed at center. I don't know if he's going to play much, but he might be on the active roster a little more often than maybe he would have been, just as a depth piece. But that basically just means that Filipowski gets more time to shine.
Yeah.
And Nurkic and Love will play more minutes than maybe they were expecting. Mind you, Nurkic was already in the rotation, but he might get a few more starts depending on how Kyle Filipowski ends up maybe fighting for that starting role as well. But yeah, it sucks. But hey, good chance for Kyle Filipowski. Go out there. I've kind of been a doubter of can he actually be a true viable, contribute to winning type player. He puts up numbers, but does he contribute to winning the way Walker Kessler was able to with his rebounding, rim protection, finishing at the rim, and seemingly improved 3-point shooting this year? We didn't get much chance to see if that was for real or just a small sample size. But Filipowski, go out there and make some noise.
Yeah, and Utah can still go big. I mean, they can still throw a big lineup out there. They may just not have that 7-2 anchor in the low post, but they're going to be big at a lot of other positions.
You've got a guy like Lauri Markkanen who will play small forward at 7 feet tall. You have Taylor Hendricks who can play the 4 or 5. Who's 6'9", 6'10". They can still do these big lineups.
Even Ace Bailey's 6'9".
Yeah, 6'9". You're maybe starting him at shooting guard. That's why I'm not as much thinking that they're going to need to go get a center, because they still have length around. And even if Kevin Love, who comes there, who's 6'9" play him at center, and even if that's not his true position, he can still pretty much do that. But you'll have maybe another 7-footer on the court and another 6'9" guy and maybe another 6'9" guy where it's maybe you won't have as you said, a 7'1", 7'2" guy at center. They'll have enough length that they don't need to make drastic roster changes. They'll just have to make some adjustments to how they go about the rotation. So it'll just be interesting to see, and we'll see who steps up. I noted Filipowski, a chance for him to step up, but Taylor Hendricks. There's a chance for him to show where, hey, can you go out there and play a small ball center type? A guy like Taylor Hendricks, his potential kind of banks on that ability to be a combo big, that power forward and or center. And heck, even small forward at times, that's kind of his peak potential, peak potential. But this is a guy who's supposed to be able to be an all-round defender, which includes rim protection. Either as a weak side defender when you're playing one of the forward spots, or heck, go out there and, if you're going to be that combo big, that means you're going to defend centers on some possessions if you switch onto them. So have him go out and try and defend centers. And maybe if you're playing him at center, he has to do that a little bit more, but what the heck, it's more reps. Go get him more reps defending centers. Maybe it'll be more than he would in an ideal situation, but what else are you going to do this season? Win games?
Yeah, the two-way players for Utah, the guys that are can be back and forth between the Salt Lake City Stars and the Utah Jazz. It's John Tonji, Oscar Tshiebwe, and Elijah Harkless. And we're seeing a lot of Elijah Harkless because he's out there playing defense with some real intent, some real good activity, and it's helping kind of get other guys going like they need to go. But we really haven't seen the other guys. We'll probably see some more Oscar Tshiebwe here soon, just as another center that Utah can use in the mix. But there are some other centers that are out there in the G League. Mo Bamba is a big body that maybe they'll try to bring up. He's a guy that's kind of floated around a bit.
He's a guy that has had more spectacular things said about him, but lived up to absolutely zero of them. Yeah. Unless I'm confusing him with somebody else. There were a few of those guys that were like, oh, this guy's the next like unicorn. Look at how they show like a highlight reel of him moving, admittedly pretty well for a 7-footer. And then you go out and watch him on the court and you're like, where did that highlight reel go where he was doing Euro steps and fade, spin move, fade away, mid-range shots? Like, well, funny thing, when you actually put a guy in front of him who defends him, maybe they don't look as good.
And he was a 6th pick in the 2018 NBA draft.
Yeah.
And now he's hanging out in the G League, hoping for somebody to call him up.
Could be Anthony Bennett. That was, that's a whole different kettle of fish there.
So he's just one that I threw out there, but there are a number of guys, centers currently floating around in the G League who Utah may be able to call up and bring them on. They might try a few guys on 10-day contracts just to see how they look, if they really integrate before they fully sign something to commit to them for the full season. So you might see kind of a mishmash of different guys who come in on a temporary basis before Utah settles in on what they want to do. And even then, it might be different what they decide at the trade deadline. Or in fact, they could make a trade now and still, I think there's time if they make a trade now that they could still make another trade at the deadline for that position.
I don't see any reason for them to have to trade for anybody. There's no asset that's going to be worth trading for somebody just this season, given that they're not desperate for a center.
No, right. If this isn't a team that's trying to vie for a playoff position or conference title, if this was a situation where, oh my gosh, we want to be a playoff team, we want home court advantage, and Walker Kessler was a key part of that, how do we go out and replace that? Then yes, there's more motivation to go find that missing piece, somebody who's already in the league, make a trade, give up an asset to get one back. This is not where Utah is currently in their development as a franchise.
Yeah, to me, if you're going to add somebody via trade, just be a third wheel on some trade where you get like a second-round pick or cash considerations and somebody dumps salary on you and it happens to be a center. Like, to me, that would be the way to trade for a center. But if not that, then just go sign somebody in the G League. But again, they don't necessarily need to do that. But let me ask you something, because this is something I've been kind of curious on, because I've been kind of a low-key Keyonte George hater. Not so much that I don't like Keyonte George, but mostly I think doubter is actually probably the better word in my case. Because, I see a guy like Keyonte George put up some numbers, 13 points per game as a rookie, almost 17 as a second-year player, but 39% shooting in those first two seasons, actually exactly the same, 39.1%. Sub 35% from three. But this year, 23 points per game through 7 games. Almost 44% shooting. He's improved his 2-point percentage by 10%, almost 10%. I think he's 9.9% improved there. Underperforming his 3-point percentage because he's actually down on his 3-point percentage, but overall his field goal percentage is up by almost 5%. And his production is going up. He's averaging almost 3 more assists per game, and only 1 more turnover per game. So what do you make of this? Is he showing actual potential to really be the point guard of the future, more so than just a stopgap? I know that was my assessment. I don't know what your assessment was, but kind of my assessment was he's looking like he just kind of is a stopgap. He's a rookie who's putting up numbers, but not enough efficiency to impact winning, but he's kind of showing a little bit of that efficiency that you want to see for somebody who will go beyond just putting up numbers on a bad team.
When Utah traded Mike Conley, they were lost as to who would handle the point guard position and point guard duties. And it took them a little bit. They've drafted a few different guys trying to find that person. And even though Keyonte George, I don't think he was really honestly drafted to be a point guard, but he appeared to be the only guy on the roster at the time who was going to try to take it seriously and do what a point guard needs to do. And he was not very efficient at it earlier on. He's improved a lot as a player, and I still don't think he's necessarily a true point guard. I think we're definitely seeing what a true point guard really should look like with Walter Clayton Jr. I think we saw flashes of that with Isaiah Collier, but we haven't seen it this year because
we saw a spectacular flash. Like Isaiah Collier is a true point guard.
Yes, Collier is definitely a true point guard. And we saw that last year. I mean, he beat John Stockton's rookie record for assists. We haven't seen him this year because he's battling an injury. But like we've seen what true point guards can look like in a Jazz uniform with Collier and Clayton Jr. But George is developing as a playmaker, which I think is different than a point guard. Keyonte George is developing into a player who can find his own shot. He was not afraid to attack the rim, not afraid to attack opposing defenses, while also helping his teammates in certain situations. Because his assists continue to be up there very high. I mean, he's averaging a little over 8 assists per game through this early season. So he is developing as a playmaker, which we've seen great dynamic players throughout the NBA who are playmakers but are not point guards. LeBron James is a playmaker. Michael Jordan was a playmaker. Now, I'm not saying that Keyonte George is on their level, but those are not, I don't think we would look at those guys and say, oh, those are point guards.
Yeah, there's an archetype there.
Right. So I like what I'm seeing in the development and growth of Keyonte George, who's getting more confidence as an NBA player, who understands a little bit more the nuance of the game offensively, who can also help set up his teammates in the process. He does need to improve on his efficiency from three as a defender. Yeah, there's still things that he needs to improve on as a young player. But I do like what I'm seeing from him that Lauri Markkanen is clearly the number one for Utah. He is the best player. He's all-star level type guy. Keyonte George isn't there, but we're seeing a trajectory where he keeps getting better and fitting into a bigger role on this Jazz team. And I like what I'm seeing with Keyonte George.
Yeah, and if he continues this improvement, then by the time he's 24, 25, this is a guy who could be averaging 20-plus points per game on 46-ish% shooting, 30 to 37% from three. I mean, he shows that kind of potential as a shooter in that he's career 84% free throw shooting. That tends to be conventional wisdom. If you're a good free throw shooter, there's potential for you to be a good shooter, even if you don't show those percentages early in your career. So if he keeps showing that, and yeah, is he ever going to be John Stockton as a passer, Magic Johnson, or Nikola Jokic? No, he doesn't need to be that, though. Because if you're a guy who can go out there and average 8 assists, that means you're running the offense well. Like, are you a passing savant? Well, there's only so many of those to go around.
Right.
And there are teams that have won NBA championships without that kind of archetype on their team. So I think Keyonte George, while sure we might put Isaiah Collier and Walt Clayton as maybe better passers, I think Keyonte is fitting into that role of, he's playing point guard, and he can be enough of a playmaker that he can run the offense, he can run the pick and roll and find either the right pass or the right shot, as those are the best kind of point guards, the ones who not only pass, but the ones who will also shoot. Like when you do a pick and roll and are breaking down the defense, there's usually at least 2 options, pass or shoot.
Right. The defense needs to respect that one of those guys can still do something. Otherwise, it's kind of a pointless exercise.
Yeah, because John Stockton gets the rep of like always passing, but like the dude was averaging like 16, 17 points a game in his peak. Like, dude would score.
Yes, he would.
The man would shoot the ball when that was, when that was the best option. It was either pass to Karl Malone, who would make a shot, or he'd make his own, or, Jeff Hornacek might be open, or one of these other guys. Like, so Keyonte George, I think, is beginning to show what I was hoping he could grow into. There's still some things that I worry about. Defense is probably the biggest one. You never want to have the point guard who scores 2 points but then allows 2 points on the other end, because you never go anywhere with that kind of play.
You're not making any ground.
Yeah, and that's one thing. Heck, that's most of this Jazz team is learning how to play defense. So we'll see if that improvement happens. If it doesn't, then the Jazz will have to look at the point guard position going forward as they attempt to find a championship contending team, although it feels like we're continuously 5 years out, because I thought we were maybe going to chip a year off of that, but is Ace Bailey progressing, or is Walker Kessler's out? Like, Cody Williams, Taylor Hendricks, are they showing the improvement they need to? So we'll see. But for now, we're at least seeing one player taking steps forward that we wanted to see take steps forward.
Yeah, right. And to be, one of those effective playmakers that opposing defenses pay attention to, you have to have that ability to score. And now they're going to start to pay closer attention to Keyonte George with their defensive schemes. And when they do that, then if defenses start to pay attention to him, then he starts to find other guys who are open and let them do their thing. So I like that progression that we're seeing from Keyonte. That's exciting. And I like what I'm also seeing from Walter Clayton Jr. and just how he kind of brings a settling presence in trying to execute the offense, run the offense when he's on the floor. I'm really excited to see what Isaiah Collier looks like when he's healthy, and how the Jazz use the combination of those three guys to run and initiate the offense.
Yeah, it's really depressing that Isaiah Collier hasn't had a chance to come in and fight for his job, because Keyonte has shown that improvement. What improvement has Collier shown? Because he was a little bit better on defense. At least he was showing the potential, at least some of the better effort and brains for it, or at least basketball IQ for it. But he was terrible shooting, just terrible.
Yes.
But he was a better passer and better potential as a defender, but way worse scorer. So, could he show the improvement in his efficiency and in his scoring? Because that's something that can maybe put him ahead of Keyonte, where I don't think Collier's ever going to be as good a scorer as Keyonte. But if he can score better in be better in some of those other areas and be an overall better player, then maybe you go with him. Or maybe you just have both of them down the line, and you can have a couple of good point guards.
Yeah, well, how does he affect winning? Right?
Yeah,
and sometimes
that's
it's not always that you score points.
Yeah, and you can have point guards that are role players, where your wings are your stars. If you end up leaning into Ace Bailey and Lauri Markkanen, do you need a superstar point guard? Not necessarily. It's all about, can he pass well? Can he shoot threes?
And can he defend?
And can he defend?
Can he limit what the other team's trying to do with defensively?
Yeah, when you face another team that maybe has their star player at their point guard position. That's a big key there. You love having a bulldog defender at point guard, like Drew Holiday, probably one of the most underrated point guards in the league.
Yes,
with the way he plays defense, there was a championship piece for 2 different teams, because wasn't he on Milwaukee
for the Bucks
and Boston
and for Boston? So
how much those 2 teams gave up to get Drew Holiday, that's not a small thing. If you can find one of those, or again, there's multiple archetypes that work at point guard. You just got to find one that will ultimately impact winning and not have too many weaknesses that again open up problems with lineups when they're out there on the court.
Utah, by the way, in Detroit tonight, taking on the Pistons.
Yeah.
Before we transition to our next topic, just want to remind you about what's going on with Mountain Valley Heating and Air Conditioning. Now's a great time to feel the love and the savings. They've got current tax credits and government rebates that are available to you, where you can save up to 40 and 50% on new heating and cooling systems. But those rebates end at the end of the year. So call now. Call 435-557-4181. That's 435-557-4181. From residential tune-ups to commercial HVAC projects, Mountain Valley has you covered with highly trained and experienced technicians. Start saving while you feel the love with Mountain Valley Heating and Air. Some notes about Utah State football. I know we spent a lot of time talking about Utah State and Nevada to start the show, but there's some scheduling news with Utah State. Going to the Pac-12, there are going to be a lot of games that need to be filled for that schedule because it's not a very big conference. So they got to go out and find a lot of non-conference games. And it looks like there's some news on that front with Troy in the mix.
Yeah, FB schedules are reporting that Utah State has added Troy to next year's schedule. They need 5 non-conference games. They now have 4 on their schedule, so they need another one. There was also a report from FB Schedules that Utah State is paying Troy $550,000 to come. That's a lot of money for a bye game.
Seems like a lot of money for a bye game from Utah State for an opponent that should be kind of a peer.
Yeah, they're the Sun Belt. They're not a particularly great team, Troy, but like they might be paying Idaho State that much money to come to Merlin Olsen Field. So, and that's like almost a quarter of the money you're getting between Utah and Washington, your own bye games. So apparently Utah State's non-conference schedule right now is consisting entirely of bye games.
One way or the other.
Yeah, Utah State's paying 2 opponents and getting paid by 2 others. So that's kind of the way their schedule is set up. Of course, they do need one more, as you said, unless there's some plans to play conference opponents multiple times, but it would be weird to like only play one conference opponent twice, because that's how it would end up being if that were the case. So yeah, Utah State looking for a 5th non-conference opponent, because they'll have 7 conference opponents next season in the Pac-12. So just about there. There's still a decent number of teams with open spots, and eventually they'll get it figured out. I think the fact that they now have 2 home games, this opens up, like, if Utah State is willing to go on the road, then they can do that, or it just maybe they just set up a home and home with somebody to kind of make, because as far as I know, it's only a 1-game thing with Troy. So yeah. There's flexibility now where you have 2 home, 2 on the road, and now it's just maybe how much money you're willing to pay to potentially get a 3rd home game in the non-conference, or are you willing to sacrifice a little bit and go on the road, to somebody else's place?
Or is there anybody with sanity in the Mountain West willing to start to make some kind of a scheduling agreement with Utah State?
San Diego State, I think, is doing a home and home with Hawaii.
Yeah.
So that I didn't know if Hawaii was going to be able to get anybody in the Mountain West, but I mean, you get somebody on the West Coast. That's not as bad for those California teams to go out to Hawaii.
No. But so right now, Utah State, according to FB schedules, September 5th, Idaho State in Logan, September 12th at Washington, September 19th at Utah. So back-to-back road games against a Big 10 team and a Big 12 team. Then home on September 26th against Troy. So, yeah, one more game to get in there. Is there a particular Mountain West school or remaining Mountain West school that you'd love to see an ongoing relationship, scheduling agreement with for Utah State?
Yeah, I don't know if there's one that actually works out for next year, because I know I went through this exercise and I went through and literally looked at every single team's schedule for who had... Or I think it was I went through G5 teams. I don't think I looked through every single P4 team, because I don't know if Utah State wants to schedule a 3rd P4 team, but I looked through every G5 or I guess G6 team, and I don't think many of the Mountain West teams actually popped up. As far as I think a lot of them just don't have room in their schedule. But to answer your question, as far as a long-term thing, like who should Utah State form have an almost yearly or pretty regular, Wyoming, I think, actually fits that, where it's like that's a traveling trophy game. That's you got Bridger's Rifle, New Mexico, Nevada, UNLV. Like basically everyone kind of fits that bill. But I think Wyoming kind of gets the nod just because there's a trophy involved in that game, and I think geographically is mostly the closest. Is it closer than Vegas?
Boise's for Mountain West teams. Wyoming probably the closest.
I don't know exactly how close Laramie is compared to like Vegas, but
I think that's like a 5 or 6 hour bus ride.
Yeah, I know Laramie's not the most popular place to go, but like I think that's something where you can kind of continue that. There's decades of tradition of Utah State playing Wyoming across different conferences, even early in the earliest days of football. Utah State was playing Wyoming. Of course, they were also playing Montana schools in those earliest days of football, and obviously that's gone out the window. But that's probably mostly the top of my list would be Wyoming.
So I'm looking at Wyoming, and credit to the folks at Wyoming. Like a lot of their non-conference games they've got 4 non-conference games every year through 2030. They only have one in 2031.
So they've got this thing
and then
down
they've got
pat.
more scheduled through 2036. They've got a non-conference deal with Colorado State already scheduled. Like they got a regular thing with Colorado State, which makes sense. It's a border war.
Yeah.
That makes total sense. But when you look at and compare it to Utah State, the Aggies have 4 next year, and then they have 1 in 2027, 2 in 2028, but then again, only 1 in 29 and 1 in 2031. So Utah State, Cam Walker, he's got a lot of work to do to figure out Utah State's schedules, non-conference schedules for the next several years, because there's not a lot there to work with. He's got a lot of games he's got to go fill. Wyoming, they're pretty well booked.
Yeah, Wyoming apparently very organized, but they've Cam Walker's got a lot of phone calls to make. So be like, all right, you want to come play in Logan? It's like, yeah, maybe. That's the tricky thing. Most people don't want to come to Logan, but apparently they want to go to Laramie. I don't know if it's somehow easier, but just kind of crazy there.
Yeah, the Cowboys, they've got a lot that's already scheduled out, and makes a lot of sense for them. But I'm not going to go through all the other Mountain West schools and kind of on the fly check availability. But I'd love to see Wyoming on the schedule regularly. UNLV, I think, makes some sense, though they've got aspirations. They think they're doing something different.
Yeah, they think they're legit. And I've heard this from multiple places now. Like UNLV genuinely believes they're getting into the Big 12. Like they genuinely believe that. Genuine belief that they will be in the Big 12 and they will come calling. And I can't imagine a thicker delusion than that.
Yeah. If there's a remaining Mountain West school, it probably would be okay not to have on the schedule again, would be Air Force.
Yeah.
Just because they're so different than what you see normally in the week.
Yeah, I
week
think,
in and week out.
I think everyone leaving the Pac-12 will be very happy to not have to prepare for the triple option ever again.
Well, and when we had Brent Brinkman on, who writes, I forget which publication, Colorado Springs Gazette, something like that.
I believe so.
He said, look, for Air Force, they're going to schedule Navy every year. They're going to schedule Army every year. And then you got to figure out, do they have a bye game in there?
Well, they also have an FCS game.
An FCS opponent that they're going to fit in there?
They basically have one.
You don't have room.
You have one open non-conference game every year. And who's that going to be? That's, you're not going to have another person you play on the regular. That's also why it almost makes more sense for Air Force to just go to the American, but that also doesn't seem to quite be on the table because it seems Air Force is happy in the Mountain West.
Yeah. So, there are options that are there, but it's what are the failings for the Mountain West schools about Utah State? Because look at this countersuit in the Mountain West. There's a lot of negativity in there about Utah State being a Trojan horse for what was going on with the Pac-12 and the Mountain West split. So I don't know how much love there is about the Aggies right now.
Do the Mountain West teams get nervous when if Utah State schedules with UNLV? Do they suddenly be like, is Utah State going to be they're going to secretly write in to make UNLV go to the Pac-12?
They just want to see the details of our contract.
Yeah, basically. Is that how they're going to treat Utah State making any scheduling agreement with the Mountain West?
I don't know. But Cam Walker's got his work cut out for him, but trying to chip away at it.
Yeah, slowly but surely adding more of those games to the 2026 schedule, getting ready for what will be a very important year, too, for Bronco Mendenhall. As I know we've already gone over football and potential consequences if they don't get a win. Of course, I think they're going to win this week. I'd be really surprised if they didn't. But even if they do win, even if they get to bowl eligibility, Broncos here to build a winning team, not a bowl eligible team.
Yes, very good point. Well, that's going to do it for us on the podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in and staying with us for the bonus audio after a very short live show. Trying to still fit a few important topics in while we're still together in the studio.
Yeah, we got to keep the content rolling. We can't be having these half-hour shows. We got to have all this stuff. So thanks for listening on the podcast. Now we have a lot of loyal podcast viewers who aren't always able to catch us live. However you're able to listen to the show, we're happy to have you.